All right, the time is now. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Welcome to you if you're new. I hope everyone had an okay week. How have you been enjoying the ride? You know what I thought of just now when I said that? I flashed on like a childhood memory. Maybe some of you have had a similar experience in your life. I remember being a young boy and going to an amusement park and going on a roller coaster ride and just being barely tall enough to get past that little sign that says, if you're not this tall, you can't go on the ride. I was like just old enough, to be able to go on the big kid roller coaster. And, you get on the roller coaster and they have that T-bar that comes down into your lap to keep you in. And that T-bar, it had some play to it. Like it locked, but it would move, it didn't like stay in place. And so I was like this little wimbly boy, and we would go and, you get that click, 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 click all the way up the hill, and it's the sort of excitement of it, and then you go over the top, and then you go down, and I would lift up out of my seat, actually, and the bar would be holding me in, but I wouldn't even be on the seat, and there would be like a little bit of a nervousness. Oh my God, am I going to fall out? And then I'd be okay, and then that like roller coaster ride and that moment where am I going to fly out of this thing and die? I feel like life's a little bit like that these days. Even just over the course of a week, felt like I had more than one up and down. So, I don't know if anybody else has been experiencing that. Maybe it's just me. Of course, I have other things that I'm doing to initiate countermeasures. And that front, the practice front, and I would say the Sangha front, having these meetings with my fellow teachers in this teacher's class I do every week, it's really, really helpful to have people to talk with and to bounce ideas off of, especially right now. As well as, honestly, doing this show. And I have a fun and what I would call wild card episode for you today with Kiko Ellsworth. And I didn't really know much about Kiko. It was one of these instances where I went on impulse and with a whim. And he had no idea who I was at all. You'll hear right at the beginning. He has no idea who I am. And we just jumped into this call together because I noticed some things about his bio that were parallel to my life. And honestly, I just wanted to see if I could connect to a stranger. And I think I did. So I'm excited for you to get to hear that today. Before we do, I do want to say maybe just a few other things. One thing in particular is that a number of people sent me a link to an article, I believe it was in Wired magazine, that was about the yoga world having a conspiracy problem. And everybody wanted to seem to know what I think. And the irony of that is 2 days ago, I recorded a conversation about some of this stuff that you're going to hear in a couple weeks about conspiracy theories and nuanced debates. But I did just want to say one thing about it, because I know a lot of you who listen to this maybe saw that article. And even if you didn't, the article was talking about this, conspirituality thread that's happened in the yoga world. And I had Derek Beres on the show, some while back when they first started a podcast about that. And I absolutely think that a lot of what they're doing over there is interesting and useful in the sense that there are wellness influencers out there who have propagated misinformation and are manipulating people with, MLM marketing and all these kinds of things, these what I think of as subtle and sometimes not so subtle manipulations of people. And that's definitely in the yoga world, especially if you're someone who is spending a lot of time or existing in the yoga world on social media, which is where my one criticism comes in. The part of the article that I found a problem for me is this idea that the yoga world is rampant with this particular phenomena. And what that assumes is the yoga world exists on social media. Like, if you were someone who doesn't listen to wellness influencers on social media, which I bet there's a lot of you out there. I bet there's a lot of people in the world who are very passionate and inclined towards yoga who don't know who any of these people are and weren't victim of QAnon or any of that stuff. And I just want to say that that's the yoga world too, that it's actually a smaller sliver of what we like to call the yoga world that this is talking about. And that a lot of people out there who are just practicing and getting by through their lives and not paying attention to any of this shit, you're all the yoga world too. We're all the yoga world. And frankly, sometimes there's a knee-jerk reaction on social media and you don't get a nuanced conversation. Like, you can't ask a reasonable question without it being like a black or white narrative. So, in any case, I don't know if any of you saw that article. It doesn't matter. I'm just spouting off, and it's a little bit of a foreshadowing of some stuff that you'll be hearing on the show in some weeks to come. Feel licensed to email me about it if you have any response to what I just said or any lines of inquiry that you think I should take in it. I'm sure curious what anybody else out there thinks about this stuff. But today's talk with Kiko Ellsworth, in my mind, is an attempt to counter it, to model just two people coming together in a real way, you know? And also, I think there was something, as you'll hear, specifically about those who identify as being men, and men talking to other men, doing the work that men need to do in order to make this world a better place. Because if there's anything we've learned in recent years, is that men need to fucking get it together. We've been dropping the fucking ball. So I didn't know that's where this was going to go when I jumped on the call with Kiko, but that's where it ended up. And I am very happy for you to hear today. Real quick before we do, let me give a quick shout out to our podcast premium subscribers. People like Danny Wiley Farwig and Christine Harpley. Thank you, Christine and Danny. We're grateful to you. We're grateful to all the other people who've chosen to become podcast premium subscribers. Not only do you get access to the full archives, but it is the best way to help support and sustain this show. It is choose your rate, and if you can't afford anything right now, then you just email us and we'll give you a free account. But if you are in a position to contribute even just a little bit, it makes a huge difference. And again, we're grateful to you. If you want to find out about becoming a podcast premium subscriber, or you want to find out about my other stuff, I mentioned it earlier, the teacher's call or the weekly live stream classes or any of my stuff, everything can be found at jbrownyoga.com. Okay, y'all. I think that's good. I think we'll just get to it. I will touch base with you on the other side for a minute. But for now, let's go ahead and listen to this conversation that I had with Kiko Ellsworth. Hello?
Greetings. How are you?
Greetings. Hello, Kiko.
Yes. Who am I speaking with exactly?
You are speaking with Jay Brown. Good to meet you. I know we don't know each other at all, and we're just finding ourselves through this weird asynchronous internet universe.
I love it. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's we're all one, and it's really great. Like, it's kind of like a taxi driver. People jump in and out of your car, and you just kind of just get to know people really fast and easy. And I actually appreciate that. We all get to accept each other real fast, real easy, no judgment. And we just get to love each other real fast, man. I just dig that.
Well, I love that, because we could choose to love or we could choose to do something else. And I'm down with choosing to love.
That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah. How's your day going, brother?
So far, it's pretty good. All things considered, the new year doesn't feel like a big celebration in my mind, but, I'm trying to look forward and, like you just did, look to the more positive aspects of what we can find and where we can do work and stuff. And so, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm blessed, man. I have challenges, and I'm, navigating sometimes my emotions. We get knocked down, but at the end of the day, really, I love my life. I love the life that's in my body. I love just being here, having a mission to accomplish for this lifetime while I'm here. And I love my mission that I'm on, and I love the people that I'm around, surrounding me, my tribe. I just love it. I love, just talking about balancing out, what I'm here to at least contribute to balancing out the energy on this planet. So, I'm great, man.
That's
great,
beautiful.
I'm amazing.
I'd love to hear that. Thank you for starting this off in such a great way. You never know somebody you've never met, how it's going to start.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think it's kind of cool in my mind that we're kind of having this moment right now where out of nowhere we flop into the same space together, and then this will live on this will live on the internet, and then like someone will listen to it, and there'll be another space of that person listening to this. That's why I kind of love doing this show. It's this weird way of connecting through time and space, like you said, coming together, and hopefully in that time we come together in a way that leaves us in a better way after, which is, I guess, a lot of the work we do when we're not doing calls like this also, right?
Exactly.
Well, let me share a little something with you, because I want to be honest and frank with you that it's very rare. I think this might be the first time, maybe the second time, where I've had someone on the show who I really don't have a frame of reference for much at all. And the only reason I know about them is because I got an email from like a PR agent or a marketing person.
Okay, great.
Like it almost never happens that someone sends me like a really good email, and that's why I end up talking to somebody. But with you, it wasn't just that whoever sent that email for you wrote a good email, but it was like when I took a quick look at your bio or whatever, there was all these like strange parallels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, life parallels, talking about lives and tribes and stuff. Because I noticed it said that you were born in 1973 in South Central Los Angeles somewhere. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Because I was born in 1972 on the other side of the hill in the San Fernando Valley. So I grew up in, Canoga Park, Woodland Hills, whatever. Yeah. And then I left LA in 1990 to move to New York to study acting at NYU.
Interesting. Okay.
I ultimately, before I finished school, moved away from acting. I got real disenchanted. We could maybe talk about that some. And
we got some synchronicity there too.
That's what I'm saying. And then ultimately, I got to a bad place. I was doing music, and then yoga became my thing, and it has been ever since.
There you go, man.
So I felt like, wow, well, this guy, and I'll be honest with you too. The first thing that I flashed to, honestly, is I left in 1990, and my freshman year of college, that movie Boys in the Hood came out.
Okay, yeah.
And I just remember I was going through all this stuff because, I grew up in this total ticky-tacky 80s suburban life there in the suburbs over there, And that movie was about what was happening on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
And I just was you don't know shit about shit, man. You are so dumb about everything. And that kind of started my journey into wanting to I don't know, have a better sense of life and people and myself, Yeah,
and that's, you hit it right on the head. And that's, maybe I'll repeat this in the interview too, if it's relevant.
This is it. Just so you know, this is it. We're going. We're in it. We're in it. This is it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I hope that's okay. I didn't mean to surprise you, but we're in it.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I saw the little record button, but I actually just didn't even pay attention to it because we just got into it so smooth. So, sometimes when I just like do them, they're like, we're going to hit the record and this is where we start. So,
I know.
But the, what was I going to say? One of the things my parents did for me with regards to getting out into the world was, I was raised over there. I was raised over there in that part of South LA, but I got bussed out to other neighborhoods. So I went to Brentwood Elementary. I went to Paul Revere, and I graduated from Palisades out there right by the beach.
Okay.
So it was like I was constantly getting out of my little world where I was raised and traveling through all these different cities, to get to the beach or to get to wherever I was going. But I was always traveling. And as a young child, that's almost synonymous with traveling the world, because once you see those things, once you see these neighborhoods, once you see the beach, it's very rare that you can unsee those things, and it just becomes a part of who you are. And that just, continued to become a part of who I was, and being able to just get out and love people, just love people, and just, that's why I love just like army brats and travel around, because they have this sort of acceptance, because they've seen so many people, so many lands, so many things, and there's just an acceptance and a love with them. So yeah, man, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and you gotta adapt. You gotta learn how to adapt and fit in. And my wife's her father was in the Navy, so they had a little bit of that moving around stuff. I'm curious, when did acting become a thing for you? Was that something early on, or did that something that happened later?
That was, for me, that was later. That was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I kind of got forced into it. And some friends, after a couple of years, they were hounding me. They finally got me to meet his agent. And from there, I ended up on stage in one of these classes. And when it really clicked in, when it really became something like a path, is when I experienced stage fright. And the stage fright, it was intense. And like someone choking me, and I couldn't even say my words, and it was just frozen, and I had a lot of that in my life in different ways, but on stage is really where I started to confront it, where I really felt like everyone was watching me. The whole side of my left face was like fire, which is where the audience was. And I just was like, it wasn't cool. It just wasn't cool, and I got off the stage and I shook it off. And I think I probably remember cursing at myself. And I said, F that. F that. That's not me. That's not real. That's not the truth. That's not who I am. And I don't know what that is. So we're about to fight. And I'm taking this acting thing on for me, so I can just be me. And that's why I started. And then everything just kind of steamrolled from there, and everything just snowballed into the career and series regular and movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I understand that. I had a similar experience. I started doing acting in junior high and did drama festivals and stuff. But back then it was really just, I was confident enough to get up on stage and could memorize stuff. But when I went in my 20s, like you were saying, when I was 19 or 18 and 19, and I got to New York, the acting training was serious, and you come up against yourself, like you were just describing. Mm-hmm. I remember them making me stand up there, and they had this exercise where everybody would just observe things about you while you were standing there. And it was the most excruciating thing ever. It was but you had to just confront it. Okay, these are things about me that people see.
Yeah.
And I don't see them. and there's a value to being shown that, and then to take it on, sounds like you did, as a personal mission to okay, I'm going to figure out who the hell I am so I can stand up in front of people and not feel like shit. Yeah.
And you're I've taken some of those courses as well, where you really get to hear someone else's perception of you. And the good thing is that, it's synonymous, and you get to get that sort of feedback on how you're coming off as a person, as an actor, as a character, whatever the case may be. But that's critical feedback. And it's just sometimes it can be a blow to your ego, but ultimately I think it's great for us to just get a perspective on how we're coming off as opposed to just thinking that, hey, like I like my hair, and that's great, because that's really all that truly matters, is what you think about yourself. In my opinion, I got to go to bed and be happy about my life. I have this thing about, like, I know that I'm going to die one day, and when I die, like, I want to be freaking proud of my life. I want to be proud of the choices that I made. I don't have a perfect life, but I want to be proud, like, of my life. So it's like, ultimately, it's like we have to be the ones that are that it matters most what we think about ourselves. But it's also value to know, how am I affecting you? How am I coming off? How am I resonating with you? And not to the fact that it's true, because that's your experience, it's your opinion, and it's not true necessarily, but it's just good to know that how I'm being received. So yeah, those are, I always just say, I always say that the acting is not just for actors. Acting is like some great self-therapy. I think everybody should get up there on that stage.
Well, it can be. I would say that there is that, but I think in rehearsal process, I did a lot of work on myself, But I have to say, there was a thing about performing. Maybe it's just me. I don't think it's true for everybody, but it was a lot about approval from others too, though. Like, everybody, like that feedback of like performing and people telling you you're good or having success. Like, I got out of it when it got to that point where I was one of the kids in the class or whatever who was doing okay, at least in the eyes of those teachers. And then it was like time to get headshots and like work the business angle, And when like faced with the life of it, of like waiting tables and going on auditions.
Yep.
I was like, that's not me confronting myself. That's me like in some kind of weird rat race, and that whole like auditioning process. And if you don't have any connections, it's like, it's a hard road.
It is, and it's like, cause I did that. I was bartending and, waiting tables and acting and doing the hustle and the life. And, it just becomes, my little dog is barking. Just give me 1 second. I want to make sure. Right. She's just like going off or something.
It's all right. People got dogs. Happens. And give her some pets.
Yeah, she's just like all over. Come on.
What's your dog's name?
Yeah, bring her in there. This one is her name is Avila. And
chill, Avila. So chill. We're trying to record a podcast here.
Yeah, exactly. She's in the house now, so she's cool. She's kind of like a little human dog.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a life for a lot of people, and that sort of like hustle, and it was fun when I was doing it, and it was gratifying, but then it kind of just after several years after being on the show and doing all these different things, there's just like things changed for me in that way where it just wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And I was confronted with like, continuing to develop myself, but I wasn't getting that sort of development from the acting. And I just wanted to develop a spiritual foundation. And I was really I was sort of like at a crossroads of basically letting go of my ego and, developing a spiritual life. Because you can't really, in my opinion, in my experience, you can't really have both truthfully. You can't really truthfully invest fully in a egoic life and then really truly have an authentic spiritual life. So, there was one point where I had to start letting it go, and I wanted to. And that was scary as well, too, because, there's a limbo period in between that I experienced where you just don't have anything. Because you have to do the work. You have to build a spiritual life, and that just doesn't like get served to you in a platter. You got to figure that stuff out.
No, it's true. And my experience is similar, but not same. Is that the acting training and then doing little acting work I did, not to any degree. I didn't get any gigs like you got, but the process of doing that, it really did do a good job of kind of initially breaking me down so I could feel things. Like I was so full of shit to like then actually be able to access emotions in myself and feel things and actually reveal all kinds of stuff I had to deal with. Like my mom died and it's just stuff I had to deal with, but it didn't do anything to build me up. It kind of left me like an emotional wreck on the floor, not feeling like I knew how to go about myself. And like you said, building like a spiritual life, as you put it, was just like me wanting to like not kill myself, wanting me to like find a life,
Wow.
like find a life is find a spiritual life in a way to me.
Yeah.
And it was just about finding tools that would help me do that.
I totally concur with that. Like finding a life is, I would just say, it's getting really truly connected with the life force energy that is you, that is inside that body, which is you as well, and learning how to express it in a way that's authentic for you, that's aligned with your mission on why you currently came here. And it's like, that's like, for me, like when I would talk to actors and stuff, I'm like, you gotta like be able to walk away from this acting industry, and like, you gotta have the power to walk away. And if you can do that, because when you walk away, you're walking towards something else that's actually more valuable. That's what I was like, sort of like inquiring about is having a life. And so there's got to be something that's, in my opinion, that's more important than, being on the red carpet. And don't get me wrong, red carpet and TV shows and all the First Class or whatever, it's cool. But, and when you're in it, it's like, that's it, that it is important. Like that's the life. But I didn't really truly realize that it just wasn't important to me, at least, until when I walked away, when I dropped all my agents and managers and I walked away and I got to look at it objectively, like in hindsight. And I'm like, wow, like this doesn't really, this is not fulfilling for me. And if I, when I die, I'm not going to care really about this. This is not going to be the thing I care about. I'm not going to care about a movie or the TV show I was on or the big actors that I was acting with, or if I became like a huge movie star. I'm not going to care about that stuff spiritually. Like, I don't think like the energies that are watching me or whatever, from above or whatever the case may be, whatever's up, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that really matters. When it comes to that. Now, if it helps to improve truly, to enhance people's lives, and, for me, if it helps like really directly with my mission, my message, like all that stuff, then yes, then it starts to play a part. But without the spiritual life, for me, it's empty, it's shallow, it doesn't mean anything. And that's kind of like where I'm at right now. It's like where the last decade I've been building this spiritual life for me. And now entertainment, after I've walked away for over like a decade, now entertainment is like starting to come back into my life. But now I'm dedicated to this. Like this, I know this is the life and it will benefit this.
Well, that's interesting to hear you say that, because it's almost as if like being in the industry is what defines you, then like it's defining who you are, rather than like you bringing who you are to that art form, there's a difference. And I guess that's the trap. Like if you don't know who you are and you get some success in the entertainment industry, that you can find yourself in a bit of a pickle. Was there a place do you remember like a moment where like you knew like, I got to bail on this, or like, was there something that really like a moment where you're like, I'm done?
It happened in stages for me. I remember at one point in time, remember the show Heroes that was out?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So I had a role on there. Like it ended up being a quicker, only like a couple of episodes, because I had made a decision I made a decision at that particular point in time. I forget exactly what, it was like I just gotten married, and me and my wife were, it was like we're about to go on a trip or a honeymoon or something that was very important for us. I'm not sure if it was the honeymoon or I think it was. I'm not sure exactly. But basically, it was either basically do this show that they were offering me to do, or, and invest in my spiritual life. Basically, I had a choice to make. I couldn't do both. And it was like a moment that I had to, either really see what choice I was going to make, what road I was going to go down, what really that I was going to truly invest in. Because I think, had I chosen if I had chosen the acting role and not turned it down, then I would have, been on, more episodes. But, I said, okay, no, I can't come and shoot these dates because I'm going to be gone. I didn't end up getting the role to be extended. So, it's like I made a choice. So things like that, I started really choosing to have a real life, for me, the spiritual life, and invest in that. There was that moment. There was also a moment when I first dropped all my agents and managers in different stages. I dropped my manager first. That was the first thing, because he wasn't aligning with me, like who I truly was on the inside. That was the first one that I dropped in this line of domino effect of releasing my representation. They're all great too,
I mean, when you say that, do you mean like they wanted you to do roles that you didn't want to do, or?
Well, getting to that, there were different things for different ones, actually. So the first one, it just wasn't like an alignment, and he just kind of didn't know who I was, and who I was becoming, and the things that truly mattered to me. And I just feel like this wasn't aligned. So I said, okay, I got to let my manager go. I'll get a different manager. This is not aligning. It's not somebody I want to have on my team. And then I think a couple of years later, I released my theatrical agent. Now, I'd been with him through almost, I think, 5 agencies, this one agent. So I'd been with him for a while. He moved different agencies, and I actually moved with him. And so this one was really pivotal. This one was like a few years later, actually, several years later after that one, because, he was trying to, as I started to like develop myself, I think I'd started doing yoga, possibly, I'm not sure. But basically he said, your look is changing. You don't fit into these roles. I can't really submit you for, an FBI role or this or that. And you
don't look like an FBI agent. Once you start doing yoga, you no longer can do the FBI agent role, huh?
Growing the hair, the beard, you know what I'm saying? It's just not a fit. And we got into, I remember at that time I was producing, because we have a small production company. We were producing something for Marianne Williamson out there. It was like, I think, Sister Giant a few years ago with Bernie Sanders out there in Washington, D.C. We were at an event out there. And I remember before the event had like started, and I was like, I was talking to my agent, and it was a heated conversation. And I remember my partner coming up to me, and she was like, is everything okay? Because I was talking with my agent so intensely, but before she had left, I was talking to one of the graphic designers. And so she thought I was still talking to one of the graphic designers up for the show. And because I was basically like yelling at my agent. And I was like, you don't know who I am, and you don't even know what you want. And what you want is actually me, but I'm not finding and discovering me for you. I'm discovering me for me. And because that's what they want. It's like what you said about 5 minutes ago. What they truly want, agents, managers, producers, whoever on the screen, what they truly want is the life that's in you. They want you to express the authentic you within that body, the life force energy. But that's something that we have to figure out, and only we can know truly if we're, authentically expressing that. And as I was discovering myself through yoga, Kundalini yoga, and that path, and the exterior was changing to match the interior that was evolving. I was really learning to like stand up for myself. The image of Neo fighting the agent in the subway when he, doesn't run, he turns around and he fights him. That pops up to my head, because it's like when you just start to learn how to start standing up for yourself, start standing up for the life in your body and expressing your voice, and literally, pun intended, like you start fighting the agents. You know what I'm saying? Whether they be Hollywood or in the Matrix, and you start standing up for who you truly are.
Wow, man. I mean, it's interesting to just hear you talk about all of that, and that process of like figuring out who you are, and then that no longer fitting in with what like the industry wanted of you. That sounds like when in my mind, when things like yoga come into play, when you're like, you need to figure out, okay, who am I? Like the age-old question, right?
Yeah.
And I like what you said earlier too, when you talked about like you had this choice between like a career move or like spending time with your wife. And the idea that spending time with your wife equates to like your spiritual life.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea to me too, because there are like other avenues of spiritual practice where like spiritual life is almost like a transcendence of that kind of thing or something, or you're like, you know, if you're like in a dualistic tradition or something where you're like a monk or you're reaching some transcendent consciousness. It's not about like spending time with your wife.
Yeah.
And making a connection between like mundane life and spiritual life to me is very been important.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's interesting because, and I'm glad you brought that up. For me, she served as the spiritual path for me at that time. She was my way in. You know, she had something that I wanted. She, firstly, she had herself. She was comfortable in her own skin. And I wanted that for myself. And she knew herself. And she, you know, and she was also a very, you know, outside of that, she was also a very spiritual woman. You know, she was a, you know, psychic and a medium and stuff like that. So, you know, and for me, it was almost like something I had to prove to me that, you know, to myself, what's more important at this particular point in time for me, like my development or me, you know, getting a TV show and having some money, you know? And I was like, you know what? It's like what I truly want, what I'm truly, you know, going for is I want me. Cause if I look, and my saying that I have today cause I coach clients and stuff like that as well too. And I tell them, I was like, look, when you have you have everything. You have everything. And that's what I was missing. No matter what role, if I could have got this role, got that role, but I still wasn't going to have me. And I would have been stepping off the path to getting closer to having more of me. And for me at that time, she served as that sort of mentor and example as well. And she's my former wife nowadays, you know, and she is the best friend in the entire world outside of our daughter. You know, she's my twin flame, you know, she's my soulmate, and, you know, she's got a boyfriend and I support her relationship. I helped her, you know, when we sold the house, I helped her move out of our house, you know, in 2019, and I helped her move into her boyfriend's house. And then 7-8 months after that, I helped her move out of her boyfriend's house and enter her own place, because that was a shift that she needed to make. And I just felt so great to be able to be there for her, because during our marriage, it was like college. It was just like learning, you know, one-on-one for relationship. And I got to tell you, like, I was like not passing that course for real. Dude. It wasn't pretty. It was a lot of unconsciousness. And so that from the unconsciousness, there was a lot of abuse, you know, unconscious abuse. You know, if you don't know something and you need to, you know, do something, you're going to behave in a way that's just, you know, I was self-destructive. So if I'm sitting there like destroying myself, of course, I'm going to naturally that's just going to be my behavior. It's nothing personal, but if you're going to be around me, I'm going to destroy you too, because I'm self-destructive. I don't know healthy ways of being until I learn it and genuinely learn it for myself. Then I can start to love you and be empathetic for what you're going through. And I didn't have that connection. Those synapses in my brain weren't connected at that point in time. So, you know, I'm always so indebted and just, you know, of service to her.
If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of J. Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.